but inside the mind, viewing from a distance. Everything appears.
This week on New to You, what happened?
What happened?
Part 2, Richard Kelly.
Inside the mind, but inside the mind. He waits with that same lonely look on his face, plus a feeling of disgust, like everything's a waste. He was made to be this, another human of the workforce. As a little child, he was told what to be. His mom made you love him, but he really
What happened?
What happened? Hey, Paco, what happened?
This better not be what I think it is.
No, it's not. It's
All
not.
right. It sounds
It's a
suspiciously like that.
travesty. Hey, that's a travesty.
I'm fine being the PC guy on this podcast.
Nope. It's not. It's not what you think. But we are making fun of a real person.
Yes.
Who's the real person?
This kid we
I
went
don't
to
know.
school
We don't remember his name.
Well, there's also the film with the guy who says that's his catchphrase.
with.
What happened?
Oh, right. The Christopher Guest movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened?
That is a good. Was that Best in Show? Which one is that?
No. It was.
It was
Mighty Wind?
No, it wasn't Mighty Wind. It was the Waiting for Guffman.
Maybe it was Mighty Winds.
I think it was. Wasn't it the one with the guy with the where they're trying to get an for your consideration? Where they're trying to get an Oscar?
No, because I didn't see that one.
Oh, maybe it is that one.
Did you see Mascots?
They're all funny. It doesn't even matter.
No. That's out now.
It's a Netflix
Yeah,
show.
I'm not I've heard mixed things about it, but anyhow, what
love
happened to
that sense
Christopher
of humor.
Guest? I'm one of your hosts, John Holt.
Hey, John Holt.
What happened to Christopher Guest?
What happened to our introduction?
We're not going to answer either of those questions in this episode. I'm one of your hosts, John Holt. Keith, who are you?
I am Keith Vincent. Jules, who are you?
Who am I? I'm Julian Cage. Parker, who the hell are you?
And Parker, what happened?
Oh, Parker. I'm Parker.
All right. Welcome, Parker.
Welcome.
We're lucky to have Parker here. Parker's a very talented musician and a busy guy. Guy, and we appreciate you coming by.
He was
I
playing
have a lot of weed at home. I gotta smoke. So, no, I'm just kidding. I'm out.
So if you have any, send it to his email address.
We don't condone the use of illicit drugs on this podcast.
Weed owned condone.
So our topic is what happened. We'll let people kind of get into their what happens. And last week we had Jules's pick, and this week I'm up on plate. So
Yeah.
let's
Holt, tell
roll
us.
into it.
What happened?
What happened? So my pick is the director Richard Kelly.
Wait, should we talk about our show for a minute, though?
Why?
To say, normally we do recommendations on stuff.
Yeah.
And
I know, people are listening to
likes
it already.
Yeah, I
right?
guess so.
I mean, they're
I
probably already standing by their water cooler.
Yeah.
The question is, what happened to this conversation, to our introduction?
That's true. Yeah, and nobody's talking, so it's a bit awkward. So hey, maybe if I play this podcast,
Yeah.
it'll
On my
break the ice.
boombox that I put on top of the water cooler.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
because then when the bass kicks in, the water ripples.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to be the guy at the water cooler whose office crush comes up to him after all these years, finally says, have you seen New to You show?
Yeah.
And you haven't watched, or listen.
That would be so embarrassing.
That'd be like, you blew it.
Totally.
Well,
Way to
you're going
blow
to
it.
spill water down your front either way, and it'll look like you pee yourself, just as she's coming up. So whether you watch it or not, you're going to embarrass yourself.
Yeah.
But anyway, this show we usually make recommendations about stuff we like and say, hey, you should check this out if you haven't. And if you have, perhaps we will explain it in a way that will shine new light on it and make you appreciate it in a different way.
Or maybe we'll make you hate it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or maybe be like, these are the kind of people who like this. Like when I got to middle school and realized the kind of people who liked anime and had to stop liking anime for a while until I could move past the fact that, you can like something beyond
Until you
You
realize.
don't have to.
liked it.
Until you realized, oh wait, I am just like those people.
Well, I didn't do drama in high school, so I dodged that bullet.
I mean, you're not. I mean,
That's
you're
the
not.
lethal 1-2 punch.
Yeah, like you've avoided performance
I'm
art.
kidding. I love you guys.
You totally. You just kept clear of,
Yeah.
of any sort of stage work in any way, shape, or form.
Yep. Don't go near the spotlight.
Times moving fast, jumped in his car, pulled off, almost causing a collision. Upset by the choice of his drawn out decision, viewing from a distance.
I'm going to tell you a little story today about a young man whose life was completely destroyed by fear.
tell mom and dad why you stopped taking your medication.
Speaking of not near the spotlight, my pick this week is Richard Kelly.
What a segue.
Zing.
So,
By the way, you can get Segways for like $600 now.
Whoa, that's a great deal.
How much are Razor scooters?
They're called like. Anyway, sorry.
what are they called, Jules? You have to tell us now.
Yeah, right.
It's like the Segway Mini or something.
Oh, phew.
What were you expecting?
I don't know. Like
Information?
Segway or something. Segway S. Like some other.
Segway, now green.
Yeah.
Going green.
Richard Kelly went to college in California. He's 1 year old, so born in. You guys aren't paying attention.
We all laughed.
I know. So yeah, he's born in 1975, so he's got 3 years on
He's
me.
1 year old.
Yeah, he's 41 years old. He did some short films. He basically kind of his career started in 96 with a couple short films, and it was really his breakout in 2001 with Donnie Darko, which arguably wasn't a breakout. It was just a highly acclaimed independent film in the heyday of indie filmmaking when it was really hitting the mainstream.
In the wane, I would say.
And you could argue it was
he was
an
like
instant.
it had crested the wave. Yeah, I would argue.
And you could argue it was an instant cult classic.
Yeah, and so I mean, this is a very
Because
weird
of
time.
Patrick Swayze. I just want to say is because of Patrick Swayze.
I don't know about that. Why he cursed it? His ghost came up on this.
No, you're thinking of the movie Ghost. That's a different movie.
No, it's the same, but it's the same continuum.
Got it. It's the same timeline.
Right.
It all makes sense. There.
Anyhow, so this they released initially in early 2001 in January, and it premieres at Sundance. Gets like a few like scattered releases. Gets a lot of well reviewed.
Get some buzz.
Releases. Unfortunately, though, they release it in October of 2001, and that's so basically after September 11th. So you're looking at like a pretty depressed time. People weren't escaping to the movies then because one, it's in public.
Or if they were, not to see that movie.
Not to see a weird, dark sci-fi movie about the 80s.
That
Hey, can I get real with
involves
you guys for Keith Vincent's Get Real corner?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. That same time period, me and my friend were trying to get our movie on a movie that we all worked on, and boy, that's some dreary film festivals going on. November 2001 was not a fun time to be in. There was nothing festive about those film festivals.
Well, I remember because me and Jules were in San Francisco still, and it was me, Jules, and Paul went and saw it at the theater together.
Donnie Darko?
Donnie Darko, and it was in October. Like it was, it was kind of like it was empty.
Yeah.
In the theater, like there were maybe 4 other people in this pretty big, like it was still an art house theater in San Francisco, but it's a major, you're talking like 58 theaters show this movie in the initial release run, but it's still, it cost 3.8 to make and ended up grossing 7.3. So, or making 7.3 at the box office.
Well, just a quick question: how did you hear about it when you went to see it?
Well, so the early days on the internet, I think you're trying to do anything but look at news. Yeah. And it was, we were tapped into the indie and like the film scene at the time, like watching a lot of stuff, talking to people at festivals, and like you're saying, because like we were doing the watermelon circuit and all that stuff. So there was definitely like that connection was there still.
Yeah, I remember anticipating the movie though. Like I knew about it ahead of time. I was excited to see it.
I remember the trailers. Like that was the era when we were watching trailers online, and that was kind of novel and interesting and new. So
yeah, it might have been the early days of Apple trailers.
Yeah. So we went in pretty excited, and it's also like right up my alley, like weird sci-fi that doesn't really go too deep to explain itself, with a little bit of horror in there. And a tale of self-sacrifice, and it's an agnostic,
but also like gloomy teenage.
Yeah, gloomy
angst.
teenage angsty stuff is fun. Like I don't know, it's like I like that entertaining kind of stuff. It's very grounded. It's not like super poppy. It's also of the 80s, and it's the same thing. It was tapping into the same thing that Stranger Things hyper taps into, kind of thing, like that sort of
80s nostalgia.
But it wasn't. It's supposed to be during the 80s.
Yeah, it was
in the 80s.
Yeah,
like
I don't
86.
remember that. Yeah. Oh.
where he
But
did,
it just wasn't like too over the top with it.
Right.
yeah.
But
yeah,
it's all that
soundtrack. The
flavor.
soundtrack was also fantastic for it, and he's.
I remember there was a takeaway. Somebody covered that Tears for Fears song.
Yep, Gary Jules.
Yeah.
Kind of, he made him. He covered Mad World, and
Yeah.
that became like, that was
Oh,
sort
I
of
forgot
on
that it
par.
was attached to that movie.
It was on par with like your Hallelujah in terms of being used over and over again in a sad.
Is that Jay Silent
what?
in Hallelujah?
Well, now that he's toast, you can pronounce it any way you want, Parker.
Great.
Thanks. Thanks for reminding us that Leonard Conan is no longer amongst us.
But yes,
You know who else is toast, Parker? Jeff Buckley. He jumped in a river with his boots on.
Well, as Iron Maiden says, if you're gonna die, die with your boots on.
All right. So enough down stuff. Let's talk about how crappy Richard Kelly's
enough
career-
downer stuff. Let's talk about Donnie Darko.
Yeah.
Wasn't it also Drew Barrymore's production company made this film? I think they
Maybe.
bankrolled it.
Yeah, that sounds likely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she's in it, right? And this is the whole cellar door thing. Yeah. So that's definitely true. So it was, again, this is the age of like indie was just turning into big indie, where like companies had, Warner Brother Independent and this kind of stuff, like where independent
They were using it as like a B team to
Right. and
grow
and so
talent.
you had people who
cultivate talent.
who already had some sway, who were able to kind of open up their own
like
production company.
Swayze.
Yeah, Patrick Swayze. But this is like a great cast showcasing, a young Jake Gyllenhaal who has broken out and done really well for himself.
Yeah, and that was one of his first like big roles.
That's
right?
definitely the first thing I ever noticed him in.
And his sister is also in it,
Maggie
yeah.
Gyllenhaal are in it is in it as well as his sister.
Yeah, whoa.
Some real method acting.
Creepy. That movie's really good. It's about a kid who kind of has these dark visions, and there's some tragedy going on around him, and he has a choice to make. That there's sort of basically, it's the idea is that he might be in a temporal shift, like a something happened.
Yeah, don't even explain it.
Yeah.
It's
Well, that's-
it would be hard to explain.
Just to give you a sense of what
There's
Right.
some time travel elements to it.
There's
and
there's wormholes and time travel and sort of like shadows or shades of time and like distortions, and it's giving this kid visions, and basically he has a choice to make where he can self-sacrifice to change time, or he can and save these people, or he can just
Let
kind
it
of
happen and
continue
exist.
forward and go forward with it. Richard Kelly is kind of self-described agnostic or atheist, and this film and then the other two films I'll talk about a little bit actually kind of have a weird spirituality to them and this like tone of sacrifice, even though they're very sciencey movies. He also released a director's cut in 2004 that added about 20 minutes to the movie.
Huh.
And a lot of that director's cut stuff there's this manual of time, like a temporal distortion manual that he kind of finds and is flipping through over the course of it, and they have more of that text in the movie. And because it's all kind of weird and sort of cryptic, it's not a big deal. Where it's more, where the sort of sense of taste maybe falls apart for me is going into a later feature where he uses similar ideas, which is The Box. So that's the other movie I wanted to talk about with Richard Kelly. The Box is from 2009. It is James Marsden, Cameron Diaz playing a couple in the 70s living in Richmond, Virginia. He's a sci-fi, or he's a lens crafter
For NASA.
for NASA. He makes cameras, and he's photo optics. And she's a teacher, and they're living in the 70s. For some reason, he has a Corvette, but they're down on their luck. Maybe they've extended their credit. He wants to be an astronaut. So they kind of have these plots going on, and it's the you may have heard of the story. There's a Twilight Zone episode in the 80s, or piece of the Twilight Zone movie in the 80s that took from this Richard Matheson story called The Box, where a man shows up on your doorstep with a box and says, "You have a choice. You can press this button, and someone in the world will die.
Someone that you don't know.
And I'll give you $1 million." And if they do it, he does it. If not,
How much is that with inflation now?
now? I mean, that's probably $2 million now.
Yeah, well, because what's interesting is in the original 1980s one, it was $220,000.
That's it.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe.
Who would kill someone for that amount of money?
Well,
Back in the
and
80s.
but also the couple.
Well, you don't know if you're killing somebody. It could just be a really
Someone
old
you don't know.
But
person
in the-
who is going to die anyway.
but in
and they
that one
just
too,
flatline.
they're also like clearly like poor, like lower class.
Yeah.
You know.
They need the money to
Like,
live
well-
themselves, maybe.
Yeah, because these are like maybe middle class people who have stretched themselves too thin in the Richard Kelly version, whereas in that one they're clearly like working class,
Right.
and
it-
just barely making ends meet, living in a crappy.
And so
apartment.
they're in a tough spot. Yeah, it's a little odd, but it's a moral piece. Do you hit the button and kill someone you don't know to take this money? And that's a very simple little story in the Twilight Zone episode. They kind of take the moral. The basic end of the story is they hit the button. The guy comes and gives them the money and takes the box. And they're like, "Well, what are you going to do with the box now?" And he's like, "I'm going to give it to someone else, someone you don't know." And that's sort of like that's the tag because when you push the button, it kills someone you don't know.
Yeah.
He's going to give the box to someone you don't know.
So it could be
they
them.
aren't going to know you.
Yeah.
So you're
And
going to be
the implication is you're the next
yeah.
person
you're the
to
next
die.
person in
Yeah.
line. So
Well,
And that's how they can keep
No,
affording.
that
it.
they just could be the next person.
No, but it's like the way it's put. It's clear that it's going to be you.
Right.
You know, like that. It's like I guess
Cycle.
a pyramid scheme or something.
well, in this he kind of gets he builds a more convoluted plot around it and builds in more sci-fi elements, and he actually pulls in some like elements from other like of the like period science fiction stuff, like the like To Serve Humans kind of twists a little bit, like basically
Yeah.
that or what is that movie, The Day the Earth Stood Still,
Yeah.
where like humanity is being tested, and you know this is
By
one
a
of
race
those
of aliens.
tests,
Yeah.
and this test is basically the test is would stop when someone stops hitting the button. That's when you succeed in the like how do you succeed in this test? You don't push the button. Like
Yeah, but how long does the guy leave it there
24
overnight?
hours.
Oh, okay, that's easy.
Yeah, and essentially the idea is if no one stops, then everyone will die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's essentially how it works. But the other thing too is he took a 20-minute story and stretched it to 2 hours,
Right.
or padded it out to 2 hours,
right. And
or premise, I should say.
it's but anyhow, so there are quite a few issues with that. And then in the middle there, he did a movie called Southland Tales, which is The Rock, and it's actually kind of like shortcuts, like that Norman Lear movie. A lot of different stuff going on.
Robert
Altman.
Altman.
Robert Altman.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually
Did Norman Lear write that?
yeah.
Weird.
So there's with more sci-fi stuff to even more complicate it. So it actually is like it's a twisting, weird movie, Southland Tales, and it's like it's kind of personal taste as to whether you think it's a successful movie. When I saw it, I was kind of like about it because it's also very comedic. He's got some humor in his work, Richard Kelly, but
Yeah. Well, and that one's it's more satirical, right?
yeah.
Like it's satirizing, like it's taking this future premise to satirize our current culture was kind of the idea.
Right, and it's very relevant to today. Like in our current, like it's more relevant now than when he was making the movie or released it in 2006, 10 years ago.
And I think he made that in response to, like
Bush and
the Iraq War and
yeah.
stuff.
So he also this guy, he has a couple scripts out there that are like well known. He had an early draft of Louis C.K.'s Holes that was kind of like everyone was excited for this draft, and in fact it's released out, like you can go read his draft of Holes, and people are mad that they didn't make his draft because what ended up being made was a very true to the book kind of like kids movie, and his take is a little darker and has some more like weirdness to it, which I think the Sakar book has some of that weirdness, and he just like he pushed it, which excited people. And
Did that guy write anything else ever?
Lou Sakar, I don't know. Sideways Stories at Wayside School, is that him?
Is it?
No,
I don't know.
think so.
I haven't read any of that stuff.
I read it when I was a kid.
Dude, everybody's in this Southland Tales movie.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a huge, like I said, it's
Everybody.
And he was basically like Donnie Darko had a lot of buzz, and he was able to make this movie. It was based on that, and he got a lot of great support.
Right.
And it ended up being kind of his like sophomore slump. But unfortunately, the box just instead of rebounding, he kind of sunk further, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting where he's not done. I'm not saying this guy's toast, but sort of like Donnie Darko was the crest, right? He started strong. I mean, he got right out of the gate.
Would you say so far, I would consider this guy a one-hit wonder?
Yeah, I mean, Southlands is successful. I wouldn't say it's a
No,
hit.
in terms of financially, yes,
No,
because Southland Tales financially
Did not
tanked,
succeed.
and same with
Louis C.K. did write Sideways Stories from Wayside School, and That's a really good series, by the way,
Huh.
in case anyone wants to read a good book series for children. He also had a script for another movie, and I'm kind of blanking on the name, but another one that you can actually go buy the PDF for the script, but it's one that'll probably never get made.
Is it another adaptation or was it an original?
It's an adaptation as well, but it's another one that people are excited should he ever make it. And he's talked about, all right, there was a shit sequel to Donnie Darko called S. Darko about his sister.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm. It was 2009. Richard Kelly had no involvement in it. In fact, because he doesn't own the rights to the original.
Ooh.
Yeah. So that's a problem. But yeah, it's garbage. Don't watch Samantha Darko.
I had not even heard of
It's
it.
not worth it. He has done, like, he produced World's Greatest Dad, that indie movie with Robin Williams, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and that was directed by
Bobcat Goldthwait.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that.
And there was a fun.
I never
It's
saw
it's
it.
not a great movie, but I hope they serve beer in hell. It was like a fun movie that he also directed.
He directed or produced?
Produced, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that one was cute too. I would say
So is he working at, like, is he just writing stuff now and
he
and
writes
sitting on his
he's
laurels?
like
or
writes
is he...
and produces. I mean, again, his last movie came out in 2009, so that was 7 years ago.
And since then, he's been trying to get stuff off the ground.
Right. He's been like trying to get stuff going, but it's really,
But
again,
Drew Barrymore just isn't returning his calls.
But he kind of, again, he came out strong, and maybe it was again, my theory of his failure or whatever is that the second movie, I think it's probably more challenging than Donnie Darko to the audience, and so is worth watching. Like, watch it, you probably won't like it, and then go back and watch it again after a little time, because then you might start to, like, after you get over the sort of weirdness of it, you'll see a lot of good stuff. The Rock is in it. He's really good in that. He plays a pretty complex character and has a lot to do, and it's probably like one of the stronger roles that you'll see The Rock in as a character, because he kind of gets action hero cast, but he's a pretty versatile dude, and you can see some of his range in this movie, Southland Tales. The Box, though, and this is where
Southland Tales was financially like a big bomb,
right,
and that
so that's another dip for him. So he makes The Box, and it's
The Box came out in 2009. That's the one that came out in 2009.
Southland Tales came out in 2006. So basically 2001, 2006, 2009, and he hasn't put anything out in 7 years. Where before
Poor James Marsden, man, that guy can't catch a break.
He's in Westworld. He's doing real good.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's in Westworld. He's not the star of Westworld. He's one of.
He's gotten bigger though in Westworld.
Who's James Marsden? Sorry.
And why did you bring him up?
He's
Because he's in
yeah.
The Box.
Gotcha. He was in the X-Men movies.
Yeah, like
he's
as
gotten
the like kicking as the whipping boy. I mean,
But
He's still got a big paycheck, I'm sure.
His like
Who's
exposure
I
has
guess I'll
gotten
look on
better.
my phone.
You saw Cyclops in the first 3 X-Men movies. He gets evaporated by.
Oh,
Jean
he was in
Grey.
30 Rock.
Yeah, he was great in 30 Rock because he
Yeah.
was a
The
little
doctor.
self-aware. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I didn't see him in 30 Rock.
He was the no, he wasn't a doctor. He wanted to run a hot dog
Oh,
stand.
right.
He was the
The
boyfriend.
main love interest.
Yeah, he was the
Yeah.
boyfriend of Liz Lemon, and Liz kept like wondering like,
Why is he?
what's the Yeah, exactly.
Because he was like
Super
gorgeous,
handsome
yeah.
and yeah. but his ambition was also a problem because his ambition was to run a hot dog stand, and so that was.
I
or like a
think
hot
he's
dog
doing
truck
all
or
right. I think he's doing okay. I mean, the Westworld stuff, his role, not to spoil too much, but it's gotten bigger and a little more centralized, his character. I mean, it's an ensemble, that series, and his character is getting some good screen and some good stuff to do.
I listen. I root for James Marsden.
He's
I'm
been
just
working.
saying, like I kind of feel bad because
I mean, Cyclops is a burden, though.
yeah.
yeah.
No one likes Cyclops.
Well, you
and
can't
it's like
see his eyes, too. Like, how do you... Like, it's really hard to act through a visor.
Especially because he's got those blue eyes.
Plus, he's a paladin. He's like a shitty, like, do-good all the time Boy Scout character.
He's just there to make Wolverine look even cooler.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, all I'm saying is, we're with you, James. Keep it up.
It gets better. It didn't get better for Richard Kelly, though, where he...
Yeah, like that's what I'm wondering at this stage in his career. Like he's definitely like, after I think 2 big bombs in a row, I think he was put on ice,
Right.
by the system.
So now he's
And
like...
I'm wondering if he's gonna get if enough time's passed that he might get a shot soon.
Maybe, or he'll
Well, here's-
continue to produce and like give other people a chance. Like you put in a lot of work and a lot of effort. He's been rehashing the same themes, and he hasn't, like some directors, you look at them rehash their themes and they get more evolved and they get more refined, or they like play with different aspects of it, or they kind of like work with different areas of it or whatever. He's just become sort of more, the big problem with the box for me, and this is what he's become more of, is all the weird.
Is that it's just $1 million?
It's just $1 million. No, but all the sort of mystery and weirdness that's in Donnie Darko was toned and placed correctly so that it wasn't like it was weird and off-putting and off-kilter, but it didn't seem like out of place or ungrounded in the rest of the world and the story that he was telling. And when you get to, like, Southland Tales is kind of all over the place, but when you get to the box, there's all these elements that just seem disparate and don't seem to really come together and make like one tale that also, like, you aren't guessing at the mysteries. You're kind of like, oh, and this too? Ugh, all right. And then some of the stuff is over-explained. Yeah. Where like they leave some things as mysteries, but that's just like the 17th mystery, and then they're over-explaining some of the stuff that just should have been kept in the dark.
That movie also has tonal problems because it's like the premise is a little bit like silly in a way, you know what I mean? But I don't
know. I like it as just a moral, like,
it's like
listen,
the lottery.
we're going to start this movie as like a moral
dilemma,
quandary. Fight amongst yourselves.
But there's a lot of things in the film that are kind of silly. Or, you know, or like they're so kind of over the top, and just the way it's set up just comes across, I think, to me a little silly. But everything else, the movie takes itself pretty seriously, though.
Right.
Like, it's a little too somber in a way. Like, I feel like either he should have gone a little bit campier with it, or really pulled back some of the wackier alien stuff. You know, like. And I guess that's where the over-explaining comes in. It's like if he had kind of left like exactly who was running this and why and how more mysterious, like I feel like a lot of that's gone in the way. And it also just added a lot of time to the like the movie was just over long. It just should have been
it seems
a tight 90 minutes, I think.
Like this movie could have been two people in a box.
Yeah.
Like it could have really
or like
been
2 people and then somebody delivers the box.
Right. Or it shows up on your doorstep. Yeah. And now what do you do?
Yeah.
And
but honestly that would maybe make a good play, but I don't know. I have trouble with movies that's just like
I mean, again, if it's done well with good actors, then it's successful. The thing is here, I mean, not that these guys are bad, but there's just weird choice. He tried to craft this whole world that they live in, and it's also a period piece. And at the end of the day, it's kind of like the period piece doesn't really add anything to it.
No, and a lot of that stuff, like he ended up basing the main characters on his parents, and he ended up and the setting is where he grew up. So a lot of it is like just self-indulgent nostalgia that doesn't, like you said. I mean, it doesn't kind of it adds like a texture to the movie, but that texture
is
like
not it's not leveraged. Like there's
it's not.
It's not sort of like, hey, we're doing this, you know, it's the Zapruder film period when we're doing this, and there's a reason why this is happening. Yeah,
he didn't use the Cold War. He didn't use any of the like it could have taken place at any time. It has a surreal quality to it.
Well, to the point where it's like you're making these people put on shitty like Virginia accents that are really off-putting because they just aren't. It's unnatural, and it's getting away from the tone, and there's just lots of characters and lots of stuff happening. Where Donnie Darko is a smaller movie with kind of like one weird set of weird circumstances around it, and one sort of choice and loop to figure out. And Southland Tales is a ton of characters, but a ton of stuff, but is also dealing with time. And when that element is in there, it changes it. Versus this is like a straight alien story. Like it's a X-Files movie.
Yeah.
So would it have been better if Johnny Depp was like a wacky zany alien?
He would have fit right in.
Yeah, well, that's unfortunate.
The other problem, like a lot of there's just a lot of stuff that feels campy. Like all of the people who are the henchmen, kind of,
right?
Who are
like mind control people.
Yeah, like they just looks like just silly, and so many of and they're so, and it's very repetitive too. Like you just constantly see these.
Because then you're kind of seeing people. So there's like Gillian Jacobs is in it, like a young Gillian Jacobs, and she plays like the babysitter. She's a woman from Community, and she's been in a bunch of stuff. But she plays like this woman shouldn't be watching kids. She shouldn't be like, you know, she should have like someone helping her like put on her pants in the morning. Like she's really set up to be a character with like mental deficiencies, and then they try to explain it away that she's like this mind-controlled zombie robot. But it's like, well, she never seemed normal anyways. Like, why bother? Like, it doesn't really add or add anything to this. But
Yeah.
So Parker,
Yes.
have you seen Donnie Darko?
No.
You haven't seen Donnie Darko.
No.
Would you watch Donnie Darko?
Would I?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I've been meaning to see it forever.
Have you seen
It's on the list. I have
Nightcrawler?
a huge list of movies that I need to see. I'm not very good with movies. I mean, I like movies. I'm not well watched.
Like well read, but with movies.
Yeah.
Hole, I have a question for you. So having seen those movies and reading up on the biography of this fella, do you think that Donnie Darko was kind of a fluke, or do you think that he just hasn't? Or do you think that's the one that he was able to spend the most time on because that was his first one, and he didn't have, he was dealing with, whatever his life was then. I don't know. Like, okay, well, what I compare it to is the reason why a lot of debut albums are usually so great for new bands
Because
is
they've
that
spent their 20 years putting it
yes,
together.
those songs have been kicking around since high school, and so.
So they're putting 12 hits on the record.
Well, just 12 of their greatest. So when the second record comes out, they're like, oh crap, I got a year to come up with a whole new album.
Sort of, yeah. I get the question. I would say that he had been writing for a while and doing short films for a while. I haven't seen his first couple short films. It may be a matter of like his taste caps out at a certain point. So like when the scale gets too large, like maybe you're right. Like he invested all of his directorial attention to this script for Donnie Darko and like really had planned it all out and was like ready to go with it. And then with these other two movies, the second one being kind of more ambitious, he starts to show its seams and starts to show the flaws a little more. And then this last one, maybe
The box almost feels like overworked.
right, like overwrought. Like he's trying to capture some of that magic.
Well,
I
to me,
feel too the concept also just didn't. I think he just
Right.
chose the wrong concept to pour that energy into.
it's
I
what
could
he's
see
really
that
into.
concept really working, but I could also see why if it's more than an hour and a half, it would become a problem.
I kind of
But,
feel like
but-
he's someone who shouldn't be directing his own scripts.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Donnie Darko was great. And I haven't seen his other movies, but what seems to be the problem for me, that my theory is that the guy needs to limit himself, have a smaller budget, have a
Have more obstacles in his
yeah,
way.
yeah. And Donnie Darko, you said, was made for would you say like
3.8 million? It's
yeah, but
not-
that's not a lot in film money. And you're saying he's trying to get his scripts made now. I'm just like, dude, if you're producing other people's stuff, so just take $4 million and make another like fun little low budget thing.
Yeah, I think too. I
wonder
do
if,
think
like
though.
you're saying in the previous episode, I don't know if the setup is such that he could move down the strata and do that easily, or again, like get access to the kind of like Jake Gyllenhaal level talent anymore.
Oh,
like,
sure.
it's-
They're out
he
there.
could
People are
discover.
out there. Yeah,
he could
exactly.
discover new
That's
people.
so much work.
It's
No.
true.
Well, think of the the Coen brothers do this every now and then, where they will, they make. I mean, all their budgets are quite low compared to the action films and such, but every now and then they'll make like a really low budget movie that's just like some really strong character study and really interesting, usually personal dilemma. And I think that they kind of feel. Well, I don't know anything about the way they feel, but I feel like that they use those as kind of like a way to shake it off and just like, we're just going to make this a small movie to kind of like get our to sharpen our teeth again or whatever.
Yeah, I think they get invested in their scripts and like the characters in their scripts, and then the scale of the movie doesn't matter. It's what the story they want to tell is really what's important.
But
I think in this
but I think
guy's
that
case,
this guy could do that.
I think it's almost more like, again, I go back to a Lucas because he's like another one of my big what happened kind of things.
Yeah.
And I know what happened is he ditched his wife, or his wife ditched him, so she was the one editing his stuff and making it good.
Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's part of it.
That's one of the- I
editing
think
his
that's one of the-
scripts or editing
his movies.
I think too.
Really?
He was
I-
he also
Ooh,
let
hot
other
chickens.
he also let other people direct the movies.
Right.
But then he ended up by the time he made the new ones, he was just surrounded by yes men. He had all the money and all the control.
Right.
And he found it really enjoyable to direct all of a sudden.
Right. So my parallel with
and he made bad movies.
So my parallel with Richard Kelly's situation, a little less so maybe, is that he wants to make science fiction movies that have effects and stuff. And
Yeah.
unfortunately,
I think he has big money ideas.
Yeah,
right.
well, so
and I think that's like
Then maybe he
he
needs-
has his eyes on that prize and not on small. Like he would have done if he had more money, he would have spent it on Donnie Darko.
But I think the other problem is that I think he wants to be an auteur. You know, he wants to write and direct, and he wants it to, to have like big ideas and big visions. And I just don't. He may not have the writing chops. I think he's a skilled director.
one of the things I think that's really good about Donnie Darko, and I haven't seen the other two films, is the atmosphere. There's so much atmosphere and mood in it.
Yeah.
And that to me was the thing that was that to me was the standout aspect of the movie.
Yeah.
And you can do that right now with a DV, like with your iPhone if you do
Well,
it
he's
right.
also-
You know what I mean? And this is the thing, like there's a lot. What's the movie called? Monsters. Have you ever seen this one? It's a new.
But that's the thing is he hasn't been able to do that again.
But also he's a steady cam director. Like he very much is like inspired by Brazil, and his tone is of that Terry Gilliam. Every frame is a painting.
Well, that's perfect. I mean, Terry Gilliam's a great example of a guy who needs to have a small budget. I mean,
Well, he blows every budget he has.
well, that's fine, but when he blows a budget, that's still small potatoes compared to, I'm sure, what that Southland Tales cost.
yeah, I don't know. I think Terry Gilliam's people would be like, or the people giving him money would say that there's
Disagree
not
with me?
quite- Yeah.
Well, what was the movie he made?
The other thing too, I mean, he may be like, because like him, I think when he's on, he's awesome, and when he's off, it can be a pretty big train wreck. Gilliam, I think maybe he's in
He's
the
that
same
same
camp.
kind of director.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing. Maybe what happened. This guy. I'm not saying he's done yet, and
Right.
I think again you can't.
I don't
judge
think
him.
anybody that we're talking about in these last weeks.
Once we get to Parker's pick, we'll see. They may have.
but Richard Kelly is definitely a lot more like his career is way more on the rocks than Johnny Depp's, obviously.
Right. I mean, again, he's in his early 40s. He's a writer director. He probably has like 5 or 6 more years left to put out another movie before he's dead. Right? Like based on the current male lifespan.
Based on Hollywood.
I think based on Hollywood, no, because I mean he's not in front of the camera. He's not an actor. So I think he's going to have opportunities. We'll see what comes up. I mean he's still hustling. He's still writing. It's but I think it's a big question mark.
Sorry, I was just looking up because he recently tweeted like his top 7 movies, and it was very telling. They're all like auteur, like highfalutin movies.
Good vocab word.
Yeah, The Rock with Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery.
Con Air.
Yeah, here it is.
Con Air.
Favorite 7 films: Mulholland Drive, Barry Lyndon, Rear Window, Brazil, The Big Lebowski, Zodiac, and Magnolia. So those are all
That's some hard acts to follow.
right, and they're also like and a lot of these they're also like a lot of these directors like slaved over their movies over a long time and etc. Like,
Right.
yeah.
It's a very specific pool.
Out of all the David Lynch,
and I-
Mulholland Drive, huh?
People really are into
I
that.
really like it. It really made an impression on me.
I mean, I don't think it's I don't think it's a bad movie at all. I think it's a great movie. But out of all the David Lynch, I wouldn't. Put
I think
that up
for
top,
me it was
though.
like in part. I mean, I liked. It's not my favorite of his movies, but I think part of it was Naomi Watts' performance in that movie.
There's a really good
Just amazing.
like Hulk critic. You know that guy?
Yeah.
There's an amazing
The all
one
caps.
about how to watch and critique David Lynch, and he specifically talks about Mulholland Drive, and it's in terms of perspective of a critic and how they approach things. It's interesting, but also in terms of like someone having insight as a critic having insight into filmmaking and how to critique a piece of work that's so like an avant-garde director basically. it's an interesting. It actually shifts. Like reading it through, like it shifted my perspective and my perception of David Lynch and his body of work. And I would definitely go. I'll link it on the website, but that's something if I remember to. It's definitely something to check out.
I don't know. I mean, we're digressing here, but I kind of feel like, is it right as a critic to kind of use a different measuring stick for different? I don't know. I
think so, because again, if like your Eberts and Ropers had the same thing. Like if you're gonna go to a movie and it's a kids movie and you say this movie is no Citizen Kane, it's like, yeah, of course not. It's a fucking kids movie, but it is a really good kids movie. So weigh it against the other kids movies that are at like that's sort of. That's an it's
well
not
that I
an
get that I get
example.
it. You compare against its peers, certainly,
right?
But so, I mean, I don't know. Like David Lynch, what do you compare that against? I would compare
so
that against a Coen Brothers movie. Yeah, I think that those would be
well.
considered
But see,
peers.
the Coen Brothers are very like literal storytellers. Like we talked about the Man Who Wasn't There. That's maybe one of their more surreal works. Except for like the dream.
Well, there's a lot of
Lebowski.
surreal. Yeah, but yeah.
But in terms of like, I mean, this is a guy who has from the get-go been making sort of odd, weird stuff and has an interesting sideways way of approaching film, maybe like a Stanley Kubrick, but even that, like Stanley Kubrick's more narrative.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting sort of, how do you critique an artist who might be one of the few people in his genre of the medium kind of thing at the time, And there certainly are other people who are there. I mean, I would have to kind of pick my head a little bit to figure it out, but there are some people that are probably in that same aspect of genre. What do you think, Jules? Who's a parallel to who's in the same boat as like a David Lynch? Jodorowsky?
Cronenberg?
Cronenberg. Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
A lot of body horror.
Well, no, not just the body horror stuff, but
just
body horror.
Just in the surrealist qualities.
I think it's more about like the psychological quality than any sort of like the things on screen.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons that
the
people
psychology of the
there's also a lot of visual stuff in Lynch movies that are as important.
I think for the reason Mulholland Drive I think resonates widely with so many people is because it's about Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And because like all of the things that are sort of under the surface in terms of experiencing movies as this sort of like unconscious dream-like phenomenon that are implicit in David Lynch's other work more so are like sort of like more explicitly meta to a degree that like even the layman could have a sense of that even if you weren't well versed in like cinemaphile stuff. And so I think that's one of the reasons that something like Mulholland Drive can like have a broad appeal.
Yeah.
It also doesn't like, for all of the bizarre and like unsettling aspects of Mulholland Drive, it doesn't have anything as like viscerally perverse as like Blue Velvet, which
or
like
Eraserhead, yeah.
even if those like I prefer Blue Velvet definitely, and like even if that does have like sort of a lot of the aesthetic of something like Twin Peaks that people are drawn to for aesthetic reasons, like I think a lot of people would watch Blue Velvet and be like, no, sorry, no thanks.
It's
like,
a little more
too
broad.
much.
It's a little more broad.
Yeah, Mulholland Drive, like it has the same sinister quality, but without like the really like in your face like strange psychosexual things.
Yeah. And the other thing that's interesting is that he had originally conceived it as a TV show.
Yeah.
And then
what, Blue Velvet or
Mulholland Drive? But then it didn't get picked up, but he like couldn't let it go, so he turned it into a feature. But I would be really curious to see that as a show.
Yeah. What was it? And one more kind of plug for interesting. Was it Restless Palms? There's another like Twin Peaks-esque.
But
different director.
Was it more like sci-fi? It was with and it was starred Belushi, right? Like
John Belushi.
James Belushi.
James
No.
Belushi.
Yeah.
I never even heard of this. I don't know what
I
this
remember
talking
it. It was like it was a weird show. I feel like it just, and I think honestly James Belushi was maybe part of the problem.
Problem with it, yeah.
Like if
about.
someone
That's
else,
usually the case.
if someone else had been cast in that role, it would have been a lot stronger. I think.
Well, not to digress yet further, well, like one more step, but the You Must Remember This podcast, there was one on Dennis Hopper, and I don't like that guy one bit. And there
Dennis
was
Hopper?
Yeah, just the guy is he's not as cool as I thought growing up. And there's
Because of this, you must remember this. You think that, or
well, just learning about him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just learning, like hearing his whole story. And the one with Isabella Rossellini makes me really not like David Lynch either. That
Blue
guy.
Velvet?
No, the you must remember this about Isabella Rossellini is
She says not good things about David Lynch.
yeah. They were an item for a very long time, and
What did she
they
say
were?
about him?
yeah,
Oh, I didn't know.
Spill the beans.
he's just a jerk.
Yeah, I don't know. That's fine. I
Yeah,
still like
people
Dennis
are
Hopper.
jerk. I mean, people are like, you gotta like.
You have to be a jerk to be a great artist, Keith. Don't you know that?
No,
That's,
I mean, you like.
that's why we're just middling, because we're nice guys.
Yeah,
Well-
bunch of nice guys getting nowhere fast.
If we were more jerks, like our podcast would be great.
Yeah, fuck you, Jules.
Oh, it's already getting better.
Yeah, see. But let's get back to your director guy.
So anyhow,
Oh, what about Jenna Malone? She was in Donnie Darko. What
Yeah.
happened to her?
Oh man, she's in all kinds. She was in the Hunger Games.
Was she?
Yeah, she plays like the.
Wow.
Ball-
Who has ever watched any of the Hunger Games movies?
Yeah.
I'm just teasing.
Oh,
She was the
That was a
one.
joke.
She was like tortured, and she was one of the like people. But she was in Saved. She was in a bunch of stuff. Jenna Malone.
Saved was like 12
Around
years
the same
ago.
time. Yeah.
is she related to Home Alone?
Yes. Ooh, yes.
They play brother and sister in a movie.
Yeah. So yeah, Jenna Malone is still. She's still around. She's still acting. I see her head
Good.
there.
Go get it, Jenna.
Yeah. So Richard Kelly, I think, I don't know. If you want to, you should definitely see Donnie Darko. Maybe see Southland Tales. Don't bother with the box. It's really like go watch the Twilight Zone episode or read the original Richard Matheson story. It's still a great tale.
Yet you said if you watch it, sometimes if you revisit it, it yields pleasures.
Southland, yes.
Oh, I thought you were saying that about the box.
No, the box, no. Like it's not.
The sequel though with Mark Wahlberg is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he fights. Mm-hmm. I really like that
Yeah.
one.
It's Son of the Box or
Yeah.
the Boxer or something
The
like that.
Boxist?
Yeah, the
Yeah, the Boxist.
boxing guy or something.
Yeah.
Guy in a box.
Yeah.
No, box trolls.
Yeah. It's I'm a man in a box.
Oh boy, Alice in Chains reference. Look out, 90s, here we come.
Buried in my shirt.
Okay,
So I would say he could pull something out. He's not done and he's not down and out. We'll see.
Let me ask you this, or maybe we already covered this ground. What would you like to see this guy do to try to get back on out
And what
there,
could
in
he
there?
do? Like, craft that scenario?
Yeah.
I think he would either one write a really good script that he gives to someone else to direct and who can really like to give.
Or
it,
should he direct somebody else's
right.
script?
Or he's given a script that's already a solid story and he applies his attention to detail to it. That's kind of it. And in
Oh, I don't
terms
know. That sounds like it's hiring a ninja and then cutting one of his arms off. That just sounds silly. You're using
Well,
half
no.
the genius.
You
No, but he's a blind ninja.
right, but in
What?
fact, it's it's like it's really those kung fu masters become more powerful the more disfigured they are. It's like,
Ninjas in Kung
Dr.
Fu
Sensei, the fighting face. He's just a
Ninjas
face.
and Kung Fu are not related.
They're the same thing.
No way.
Yeah. Look,
Oh,
when the
boy.
samurais put on black clothes and become ninjas, they change their kung fu style to Red Lotus.
So, so
what
you
the-
think that he should kind of drop, like maybe just concentrate on one thing over
Well,
the
again,
other.
he gets in there and produces movies that support people and are interesting, good movies that he's producing. Like World's Greatest Dad is not like a blockbuster thing, but it's a good, interesting, introspective movie that like I'm sure a producer has a pretty big hand in making movies, and so he's working with Bobcat Goldthwait and making something good. So if he had a script, like probably what would be most fun is one of his scripts that he's like gone in there and has figured out how to do it, and then someone else taking it and really plussing it with their directorial gaze that makes
Do you
it.
think that somebody was holding his hand more with Donnie Darko
No, I don't think anyone was holding his hand. I think that he
or guiding him?
maybe like there were probably a few things where he made choices that just so happened to fall on this side of right, where they're like, because sometimes when you're making taste calls, it's all guts and you just this is what I want to do. And again, maybe it's because like Jules alluded to that this was more indulgent, the box, that he was a little blinder to the taste choices he was making and lost the thread, basically.
I think this guy needs to team up with the guy that did Primer and just like really make a super cheap, super two double artists, doubly strong.
But he would need to do that himself because the Primer guy is basically like because he had
one-man shop.
That's an interesting case study or comparison because he tried making a movie in the Hollywood system and it was kind of stuck in development hell, and he just could not get it off the ground. And he eventually realized, oh, I just can't do it this way, and he's decided to just make all his movies on his own shoestring, and that's working.
He's making really cool stuff.
Yeah, he's making really interesting movies.
But I think we can say that. I don't think he aspires to that. I think he aspires to be in that canon of great cinematographic, heavy, rich, detail-oriented Kubrick
certainly. Well,
directors.
I mean, when we went down that list, and I'm going to stop belaboring this guy's career here shortly, so we don't go too long. But that list of people that Jules read off as his favorite movies, right? So you got David Lynch. That guy worked with shoestring budgets until Blue Velvet. You know what I mean? The guy. Well, I guess Dune was probably a pretty big budget, but
he was also,
half of his career was like indie film budgets,
and he was also willing to go to TV.
And the same could be said about the Coen brothers. The first 3 of their movies were like very low budget. I mean, it seems like he's trying to jump the gun.
Some of it may be timing as well, though, because I think, like John was saying, it's harder to make those in between movies now.
Yeah, I was saying last week.
Yeah, the indie movie scene is just like not great right now.
Right, and so it's like really.
Yeah, but it's still it's not great as far as making a lot of money, but it's great for being able to afford to make a lot more with a lot less.
Right, but again, it's sort of like there's the guys making iPhone movies, and then this guy he aspires to being a Kubrick.
Yeah, he wants to make
to Terry Gilliam, who's like
he wants to make a movie in the system.
Right.
Why can't you do that with an iPhone?
You can.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Why can't you do that with an iPhone? Yeah, you can.
By the way, I checked his IMDb because I was kind of curious, like, how do you not make a movie since 2009 and still like pay the rent, right? But I mean, I guess he's been producing. He's been producing.
And probably right.
And yeah, like he did the story. He has a story by credit for Domino, which came out in 2005, and a couple other things. But he does have 3 projects in development right now.
Yeah.
That have producers
We knew a
attached.
guy that's in Domino. We knew an actor.
Yeah.
So there's 3 projects. One is called Soulmates. One is called Amicus, and
Amicus has been in production for
in development
years.
And he's also got a screenplay for something called Corpus Christi.
Yeah.
An Iraq War veteran teams up with a wealthy business owner in Texas. That's the highlight. It's a thriller drama.
So that's Richard Kelly. Donnie Darko is available. I don't think it's on Netflix right now or Hulu or anything, but it's on iTunes. The director's cut is take it or leave it. It's the 20 minutes really just kind of like it adds weird texture to the thing, but you don't need it. It's unnecessary. So again, that's sort of the first sort of like chink in the armor kind of thing. Like
we should have actually spent more time dissecting Donnie Darko because I got a lot of questions that I would love to ask people about it to see if their theories are the same as mine.
Well, you could have, I mean, it's like, what happened in the movie?
Yeah.
Nothing.
What happened?
Donnie Darko is just a moody kid. He gets a black trench coat, and he goes into the school with his buddy Dylan, and they just shoot so many people.
Yeah.
That is not what happens in the movie.
And then he decides, you know what?
I want to kiss Jenna Malone.
Yeah, let's play Tears for Fears cover, and I'll jump off a cliff.
Malone.
But to bring it back to that Gary Jules cover of the Tears for Fears song, that later showed up in a video game trailer, which I thought was really funny.
A Gears of War.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, not just the trailer; it was in the intro to the game.
Wow.
They would play it. So weird.
I can't believe they stole that.
Yeah.
By paying money. All right, let's wrap it up.
All right. So The Box, Don't Bother. Southland Tales is on iTunes. Yeah, that's the shebang. Thanks, gang. That's my pick for what happened.
Good pick, Holt.
All right.
Mrs. Lewis, I assume you received the box.
I'd have an offer to make. If you push the button, 2 things will happen.
First, someone somewhere in the world whom you don't know will die. Second, you will receive a payment of $1 million. You have 24 hours.
Such a question, there are many possible answers, such as hard work.
Feel I'm alone in this whole of existence. I know it takes time, but I'm losing my persistence. The distance is too far to fetch, so I sketch on.
Hey, everybody, thanks for listening to the second in our What Happened?
What happened? But do go see Donnie Darko. I mean, that's if there's a takeaway from this
Yeah,
episode.
Parker, go fucking see that movie.
It's a good movie. And
Okay, but I don't
guess-
want to pay for it.
Oh yeah, and also, well, borrow it from Holt. He's got it on DVD.
I got it on DVD.
I got it on DVD too.
Won't you come
Parker, do you have a DVD player? Do you have any way to play a DVD?
My phone's got the CD. I mean, my computer.
It's got a CD player.
My computer's got the CD player.
Well, you have an old computer.
I do, yeah.
Sweet.
Come here, I
It's not that chill.
I got the Donnie Darko
Yo, computers
in my
are
pocket.
expensive, dog.
Yo.
Hey,
Truth.
I'm going to digress for a second here, too. I know it's the very end of the episode, but what do you guys recommend as an affordable alternative to a Mac that still is powerful, but maybe a little bit cheaper?
A PC.
Oh,
Because
Jules
this
has
would be
got you
new to
covered.
me on the New
well,
to You show.
So the question is, do you want to still do Pro Tools?
I would love to have good audio processing power, guys.
Well, so no, because really the problem with like your Pro Tools stuff is it's Mac only, right?
no, Pro Tools isn't Mac
Really?
only. No,
Then it might be that the
only Logic's
What
Mac
about-
only.
what about-
that's
I don't use Logic.
Okay.
What about Fruity
You're
Loops?
safe.
People love Fruity Loops. I've never
know.
fucked with Fruity Loops.
My cousin swears by
People love Fruity Loops.
So yeah, I mean the other thing is look at if you have any other hardware that you want to use. Like for instance, Apogee tends to be Mac only.
I'm Apogee.
So
Is Apogee really Mac only? Mac only?
yeah, so that's a hassle.
it. Jenna
Yo,
McConaughey.
no, really? That sucks.
Yeah.
Bruh.
You can go the twisted route of building a Hackintosh.
Yeah.
Which is basically you build a custom PC, but you use all parts that are compatible with Mac OS. So but there's a lot of guides online that make it, like you can just follow
Reasonable.
the directions.
Is it affordable?
You'll save you'll
definitely.
save maybe like 30-40%.
But I mean, this is to make like a top of the line machine. Like,
Yeah.
It'll definitely be far cheaper than buying. I mean, the problem is right now that Apple is not updating the Mac Pro, so there just is no option. So
Yeah.
you can definitely get something way faster in the Pro desktop arena. But
Right. I mean, you could.
But it's a hassle, and it's a finicky and stuff.
You could keep like if the Apogee is your I guess the problem is you'll want to like run stuff right into Logic, right? Or
Pro
right into
Tools.
Pro Tools, right?
As opposed to.
Like as opposed to recording into whatever software on your thing and then doing your processing on a PC. Like basically your Mac
yeah, I
would just
wouldn't wanna
be
do that, yeah.
So yeah, that's a
No, I
No,
think,
but
I
again,
think
if he-
Jules is.
if he
Yeah,
has
I
a
think it's good. You
Hackintosh,
do
he
it.
can
Yeah,
do that.
you
Yeah,
make
the-
your Frankenstein machine.
Is that
Didn't
hard? I
Mary-
mean, I'm a guy with very little putting a computer together
Well, it can
know-how.
be difficult.
It's gotten a lot easier just because there are very, very good guides online where you can just follow along.
Mm-hmm.
But when anything goes wrong, that's when you're like, I don't know how
Right.
to fix
Well,
it.
the other thing too is every update is a nail biter.
Yeah, you
Because-
can't just go ahead and update your software. You have to.
I mean, I
make
already
sure-
feel like I can't go ahead and update my software because of music
Yes.
compatibility.
Yeah, so maybe you're okay. In
I mean,
that
it's
sense.
already been an issue for
I
me
would-
just this most recent round, and that's.
I would research it and just
But
kind of
I'm
see.
really surprised that I didn't realize audio processing took so much computing power.
No, it doesn't. I just my old computer is just it's however old, and I got it refurbished.
I mean,
I got it refurbished 4 years ago,
Oh yeah, if
so
you
it's
just
already
buy,
a couple years old.
I would just buy a newer Mac. I'm sure if you buy yourself like a
I also just
mid-range
hate Mac. I'm tired of it. I don't want the company anymore.
But you know what?
I'm trying to
okay.
protest. I'm trying to
Well,
make a
so-
protest.
so-
break.
trying
Yeah,
to
we're-
protest.
Let your
Macbook
dollars do the
protest.
talking.
I mean, honestly, the other way to go is get like a 3-4-year-old iMac. Like, there's some decent ones out there.
Maybe 2-year-old.
Mine is probably like 5 years
So
old.
get a 2-year-old
6.
get a 2-year-old
Yeah.
iMac and boot camp it because that's actually easier to go to Windows and have that and then play with your audio stuff on Windows and see how that works out for you. That's probably the thing to try before you go.
Yeah,
and
but
get
then
a
you will
PC.
have already bought the Mac.
It's easier to boot. Like I boot camped Mary's iMac the other day, like through the dual boot on it. Didn't have to buy Windows. Didn't have to do
No,
anything.
but like, why you had to do that to play a PC only game? Why would he need to do that if he's using Mac compatible stuff?
Basically, what I'm
It makes
saying
no
is,
sense.
like, if you want to, like, you're gonna start to. It's an interim step.
I mean, I'm not trying to.
Interim to
I mean,
what?
I'm mostly
like
just
going
wanted
full
like a new,
PC.
powerful computer that it doesn't have the price tag of Mac, and maybe doesn't have like the annoying like.
I mean,
Just I feel like Mac they're trying to make it so user friendly that it's just like hard to do anything that you like need to do.
You think that, but that's because you haven't used the alternative in a long time.
You know, I feel like I remember using Windows. Like it's annoying. Like the library is always hidden on Mac and shit. Like everything's like that. They're just like there's all these obstacles to just like organizing files how you want them. I feel like, or like getting to
like
things.
Mac
if you're
is
trying
like-
to do anything beyond the surface level, it's kind of
Mac's
a hassle.
like, hey, don't worry about where these
Yeah,
photos are. Don't worry about
exactly.
where these songs are. We got it.
Yeah, like
buddy.
don't worry where the components of this program are. Like
yeah. No. That's not
Yeah.
for you. We got this.
yeah, and that's just kind of annoys me. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I'm telling you, it's still better than the alternative in my opinion.
In your opinion, yeah.
Well,
'Cause
hey,
I
listen,
use Windows now, and I don't like it.
we
I don't
have-
like it at all.
We got a couple like last year at around this time. Julian and John's girlfriend Mary were building their own computers. We know the website.
Yeah.
We'll let you know what it is.
Okay.
That there was a website that they used too that was a really
Turned out well?
good
It's like a
resource.
peace party.
Yeah, I mean, it works. It works great. I mean, you know,
Yeah, Mary likes hers a lot.
There were some
Bumps.
bumps, but other than that,
Yeah.
Mary's had no problems. But
No
she's not-
bumps for
she's not
Mary.
Frankensteining or anything. You didn't either, right?
no, I'm not. I didn't do
Not
a
Hackintosh.
Hackintosh. I went full PC.
Right.
But Max, who also works here, he built a Hackintosh, so you could talk to him.
I'll talk to Max too, and he does audio stuff.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
All
That's
right.
probably
Ask
why
him
you did
about
that.
All right, I'm done.
Hey, sorry. You should have just talked to Max in the first place.
Yeah.
So, gang,
MacBook Pro.
I was one of your hosts, John Holt. You can find me on Twitter at Lord Joho. Keith, where can people find you?
On earthlingkeith.com.
And I'm Julian Cates. You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Beautiful Jules. How about you, Parker? Where can we find you?
I'm Parker Silza. You can find me on JDate
Did you
Signed
just
up.
make a profile?
or Christian Mingle.
Farmers only.
Bitches.
So, Parker, before we get into sign-offs, what was new to you this week?
Well, I think probably this is going to be not exciting for most people, but I'll share it. The new Bruno Mars album is so good. It's so fucking good. Front to back, everything's a single. I listen to it like every day since I first listened to it, sometimes multiple times through. And the song Versace on the Floor is sick, and you guys got to listen to it. Production's impeccable, songwriting super solid. Good survey of the history of pop music over the last 40 years. Just genuinely very fun. Nothing too artsy-fartsy or highbrow, but great songcraft, great playing, great arranging, great production.
I root for Bruno Mars.
I root for Bruno Mars, too. I think
yeah.
he's a real performer. He's
And-
got
and, like,
chutzpah.
yeah,
He's got
yeah.
swagger.
And it just consummate performer.
Swag or swagger?
Swag. I think he's probably got a lot of swag.
I bet he's got a lot of swag at this point.
Does he dap?
Yeah, I think that guy's great. You don't get a whole lot of people like him. Dang, this song is so good.
What's it called?
This song?
No, the record.
The record's called 24 Karat Magic.
Okay.
And
This song is Versace on the Floor, which really you gotta let it go all the way to the chorus because that's when the magic really happens. But if this song doesn't make a human want to get it on, there's something wrong. Something's not working down there. Because this is sexy, glorious music.
Parker's getting a
And listen to
boner
these
right now.
synths. I mean,
This is like throwback to 1980s Michael Jackson.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing is super throwback. It's kind of like hopping through decades and
Pause.
stuff.
That's too much.
30
Okay,
seconds,
thing is-
bro. 30 seconds.
But we're talking over. We didn't even get to the chorus.
30 seconds.
I'll give you a hint. He gets her to take off the Versace dress.
All right, I'm going to find the chorus.
No.
it's-
You skip the beat. Just don't even ruin it.
It's all
Just go
about
home
the,
and watch the
Jules,
listen
it's
to the
about
song.
the journey, man.
It's about the
So the
journey, the
album-
climactic moment where
No,
the
but we
little
can't
riff
play.
comes
We
in.
can't play the whole song. I was just trying to.
Yeah.
John can cut it.
Is
in
it the
in
hottest
post.
album this year for you?
I honestly don't even want to get into the greatest of this year because I'm like woefully behind on many of the critically acclaimed records, and I'm gonna sound a lot less informed than I'd like to be. I
Well,
will say I
you're-
love that.
you're-
I loved Life of Pablo. Obviously, David Bowie knocked it out of the park at the beginning of this year.
Jules.
It came out this year, dude.
It came out this year.
2016.
I know. I don't understand the problem.
I don't. That's not even like close to something that has to do with dying. I don't even know why you're laughing. For anyone at home who's listening, these sickos think it's hilarious that my hero died this year.
It's not hilarious.
They just
at
can't
all.
stop laughing about how
I
David
just
Bowie
thought
died.
that you were saying that him dying was knocking it out of the park. My bad.
Anyway,
And I'll edit all this out. But I thought that you were. My initial thing was before he was knocked out of the park. That was my line, but I don't think it's funny. That he's
thanks for sharing that line with us.
This is super weird. So somebody I guess there was an article about what's the guy who sang "I come in searching for a heart of gold." I'm
Neil
blanking on his
Young.
name. Yeah, I know. What? Anyhow, they put it on Facebook. They had posted an article, and it was just there was no title to the article. It was just an article, so it was just a picture of Neil Young and a link, and they put a heart emoji, and everyone was like, "What happened?" Everyone's initial response was, "Did Neil Young die too?" And it was just like. Everyone's like, they had to go. They're like, the later comments were like, I finally went to the article and I totally thought that this was like someone else had died. Like, so it's this weird. I don't know what the deal is. It's just 2016 has just been brutal. But
But Neil Young is alive.
Neil Young is alive.
Okay.
As of this recording. But
Yeah,
it was like a weird.
If he was dead, they would have used a broken heart icon.
Oh, So Parker. Bruno
Yes,
Mars,
John.
how does this compare to his other albums?
Honestly, I haven't really ever listened to a whole Bruno Mars record through before this. I mean,
you
I'd
go
heard
back?
I'd heard singles that I enjoyed. Obviously, Uptown Funk was before it became sort of like oppressively inescapable. It was absolutely brilliant and extremely amazing. And so I checked out his follow-up single, which was 24 Karat Magic, and I was like, this is carrying the momentum forward. And then, I mean, honestly, look, like a pop record that's that consistent front to back and like that re-listenable
Hard to
is...
come by.
Yeah, it's
Well,
hard
I mean,
to... I
Carly
mean,
Rae
but we had some good
Jepsen's
stuff this year.
Emotion.
The Kanye West record was amazing. The Rihanna record was amazing. The Drake didn't quite hit it out of the park totally, but had some amazing songs on it. I mean, it was a good year for pop. And now I'm just talking about like the tippy-toppy poppy guys. I haven't even gotten into the next rung down of like great smart pop that came out this year. So...
Cool. So yeah, we'll have links to Bruno Mars album and some Donnie Darko and other Richard Kelly movies on the website, nudyshow.com. What else? Oh yeah.
I'm done.
nudyshow.com. You can follow us on Twitter at nudyshow. You can
Leave comments on iTunes.
leave comments and reviews and rate us on iTunes.
Put some stars.
and
on there.
subscribe so that you can
And check
stay on
out
top.
my Krautrock podcast. It's called Noi to You. It's only about Noi 2, their second record. Noi 2 You.
Yeah. and you'd be surprised that his podcast has been running for 15 years.
Yeah.
There's a lot to say about that album.
Well, I just play one of the tracks 3 or 4 times. It kind of takes it through the whole thing. For Emer forever.
All right. So, gang, it may not be new. Oh, next week.
Oh,
Yes.
We're going to continue our theme of what happened with
yeah.
Keith's
I'll do it
Yeah.
next week. Why
All
not?
right, so, Keith, what are you going to bring to the table next
Well,
week?
the thing I want to talk most about is the movie Coming to America because I love it. It's hilarious and a bright spot in my...
Bruce Springsteen, it's Cheech Marin.
Yeah, exactly. But what in the context of this podcast and this theme, it's about Eddie Murphy and like, dude, what happened to that guy? I mean, he's perfectly fine and successful, but when you compare when you compare the movies that he made and the comedy that he unleashed on this world. And you compare that to what he's making now.
He's still holding
sad.
out for another Dr. Doolittle.
No, I'm hoping like new Clumps movie, come on.
I know Medea and the Clumps.
Oh, come! It's just it's
Now
it's
that's a
made
good
in
Medea.
it's a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
Anywho, that's what I'm going to talk about. Go watch Coming to America if you haven't seen that movie. It's outstanding. I love it. It's one of my.
And would you say like the Clumps in this any of the latest batch of stuff is sort of like the low point?
No, I mean I don't even want. There's nothing. You don't even have to mention it. I mean,
I would
like,
watch Bowfinger.
Bowfinger's okay,
think
but
Bob-
it's still
we'll
not.
get into it,
It's
but-
still not great.
I'd watch Pluto Nash
Yeah,
if I wanted to kill
you'd
myself.
be the only person. Yeah. Well, Rosario Dawson's in it. She's great. I like her.
Damn.
So that's what we're going to talk about next week.
All right.
Edward Murphy.
Edward Murphy. We'll get into some comedy on what happened next week.
What happened?
Gang, it may not be new, but maybe it was new to you.
What happened?
Explosions.
Away from all the troubles and the clutter of the world. Got no need for nothing, so I'm out of here. Leave me alone to myself till I figure it out. Then I'll try to explain what it's about. For now, give me time to think, cause I'm sinking in the quicksand. Been peddling too long, and I'm not a human kickstand. Need time to rest, but I gotta keep moving. This pitiful life is all about the music. 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 This pitiful life is all about the music.
With him.